In this video, we're looking at UFC 298. I'm going to give you my full card predictions. Let's make some money this week. In our main event, we have a fight for the title, a belt that Alexander Volkanovski has defended 5 times, and he's largely considered the best the division has ever seen. And it's hard to argue that when he's never lost at this weight class, and he's beaten guys like Jose Aldo, Max Holloway 3 times, Brian Ortega, Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, insane resume. And what's even more impressive is that he's able to sustain these performances time and time again. We see it all the time. A fighter will go on a win streak. They'll work so hard to fight through the ranks, they'll get to the mountaintop and they will capture a championship, but they can't hold on to it. Someone hungrier comes along and takes it off of them. It's very normal, it's very common, but Volkanovski is one of those rare cases where a fighter becomes champion and starts getting even better. His speed, his offensive and defensive wrestling, his heart, his endurance, just everything continues to improve, and as a result, these guys can't stop him. We know that, and Vegas knows that, which is why he's been heavily favored since he won the belt. In these title defenses, he's been a 2-1 favorite, sometimes a -700 favorite, sometimes a -900 favorite. The odds makers have been very confident in Volkanovski until now. This fight is at a pick'em, near even odds. Why? Why? Because he has the most complete challenger on his hands in Ilia Topuria. You want to talk about confidence? This dude makes Zlatan Ibrahimovic seem coy. Topuria is certain that he's going to beat Volkanovski, and there are a lot of reasons why that might happen. He's an elite grappler, although they probably don't grapple here. They're going to strike the whole time. Not probably, they definitely will strike the whole time, I promise you that. But for as good of a grappler as he is, he's an even better striker. His boxing is tight, he keeps everything sharp, he knows when to pour on the power and when to let off the gas a little bit. You're talking clean, efficient footwork, good forward pressure, and it's a lot of what you can say about Volkanovski. So here's where I'm at with this. We have very similar skill sets from these guys. They do a lot of the same things well. Where I give Volkanovski the edge is definitely with the leg kicks. Those can make a huge difference in this fight, just like they did against Max Holloway. Topuria likes that forward pressure. He likes to march guys down. He likes to impose his will, and Volkanovski can start chopping away at that leg and change everything. I also give Volk the edge in output. His volume's going to be high every round, so if Topuria can't have big moments like knockdowns, near fight ending moments, then the volume, the leg kicks, the optics of it all are going to lead to him losing rounds and as a result losing the fight. Where Topuria has the edge is in the power. He's got crushing power in his hands, more than anyone Volkanovski has seen at featherweight. And understand this, when you're watching Alexander Volkanovski fight, you are watching greatness, like John Jones, GSP, Khabib caliber greatness. And just like those guys, one of the reasons why he's so great is because he dares to be great. He takes chances in there. He commits and crashes hard into the pocket so that he can land his strikes and look for his takedowns. But when he does that, he tends to lead with his head, which you do naturally. It's very common in MMA. It's very helpful. Throwing combinations with his head down because he's trying to get as much distance and as much length on these punches as possible, which I get. But when you look at the guys he's faced, you have to ask yourself, who's going to make him pay for it? I'm not saying that he's making a mistake, but he's definitely taking risks when he's leaning over like that. Yair Rodriguez had success in some spots when he started opening up, but it wasn't enough. Max Holloway has elite volume, but average power at best. Brian Ortega's a grappler. Korean Zombie, Aldo, Mendez, all past their prime. Darren Elkins is a grinder, but not much of a power puncher. Ilia Topuria is going to catch him. Ilia Topuria can make him pay for those chances the way other guys could not. And just to be clear, I understand Volkanovski is a monster and he could clean out the division again if he wants to for the next couple of years, but he's had the hardest training camps. He's fought the best of the best, but now he's 35 years old. He was knocked out around 100 days ago. Now he's fighting an undefeated 27-year-old who does almost everything Volk does just as well. Changing of the guard this week. Give me the younger man, give me the challenger, give me the confidence, give me Ilia Topuria to win this fight by knockout. Now for our co-main event, I almost considered not including this one in the video because who knows if this fight actually happens. Paulo Costa's pullout game is that of a clown pulling a handkerchief out of his sleeve. So who knows if this fight actually happens, but for the sake of content, I'll leave it in even if I'd be doing it for nothing. I think a lot of this fight comes down to pace. Whittaker and Costa have 2 very different styles. Whittaker is super technical. He's got that bladed karate stance. He has great kicks, throws a lot of straight punches down the middle when he decides to blitz forward, while Costa just wants to bang, bro. I do. He's at his very best when he's got the secret juice flowing through his veins and he's able to move forward and let his hands go. We've seen him crush guys, smash guys with that power, that pace, that pressure, that presence. So when Costa gets rolling downhill, he's very hard to stop. But we've also seen Robert Whittaker just freeze guys because they can't figure him out. Look at Whittaker's fight against Marvin Vettori. Vettori and Costa do a lot of the same things. And I would say that Marvin Vettori is a bit more durable than Paulo Costa. Robert Whittaker floated on him. He beat Vettori every round. He busted him up. He landed more than double the the strikes that he did, and I think he could do the same thing to Costa this week. Paulo Costa's inactivity might be good for his Twitter page, but it's not good for his fighting career. He's had more canceled fights in the UFC than wins in the UFC. And if you look at his last 3 fights, which are over a pretty long time, it's hard to be confident in this guy. He's a stunt puller. He pulls stunts. In his fight against Adesanya, basically claimed that he was drunk in the fight because he was slapping a bag of red Franzia the night before, and he gets knocked out. Against Marvin Vettori during fight week, he decides, I'm the one to cut weight. So they end up fighting at light heavyweight, something that obviously favored Paulo Costa, and he still lost. And then when you look at his last fight, it was against the ghost of Luke Rockhold, who hadn't fought in 3 years and was brutally knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights, and that fight was at Elevation in Salt Lake City. Paulo Costa wins, but you go to war? Costa spent time on his back, he ate clean punches. I just look at Paulo Costa and think, what are you doing? Now he has to fight one of the best in the division in Robert Whittaker, whose mentality is up there. He's focused in the octagon. Paulo Costa likes to showboat, smile, laugh, high five. Bobby Knuckles is not with the nonsense. He's not going to be your friend in there. I see Whittaker bouncing along the outside, chopping away with the leg kicks, leaning on his takedowns a lot in this fight as well. I think Paulo Costa spends a considerable amount of time trying to get back up. Costa's tough and talented. He'll have his moments in this fight, but the cleaner fighter with the better mindset will rise to the occasion this week. Give me the Reaper to manage the distance, numbers, and grappling in this fight. Give me Robert Whittaker to win by decision. Next, we have a fight at welterweight. Ian Garry has silenced a lot of doubters so far. When you come into the game the way that he did, very young, very confident, talking trash, there's going to be a lot of people waiting for you to lose. He's now 13-0 with 6 of his fights being in the UFC. So he's come in with a lot to say, but he's backed all of it up. He's only 27, and after this Saturday, he will have spent half of his MMA career in the biggest and baddest promotion out there. So you got to respect it, and you got to respect the performances along the way. He hasn't had these close robbery type decisions like other prospects. He's gone out there and he's dominated the likes of Neil Magny. He knocked out Daniel Rodriguez, finished Kenan Song, and picked up a knockout in his UFC debut in a fight where he was losing. He was getting pieced up in round 1. Even against Kenan Song, he was dropped, but he showed an ability to fight from behind through adversity and find ways to win. So for as much flack as the guy gets, especially like with his personal life, which I don't care about at all. I don't know why these grown-ass men care so much about what's happening in Ian Garry's life. I'm here for these. I want to see this. That's all I care about. But again, for as much flack as he catches, he's a damn good fighter, and if you disagree, you would just be wrong. And he's going to have to continue to be a damn good fighter this week because he's going to have one standing across from him in Geoff Neal. Our boy Hands of Steel, friend of the show, is a tough fight for anybody. He did well in spots against Shavkat Rakhmonov, aka the best fighter in the division. We saw him destroy Vicente Luque in a way that nobody has. He's got great takedown defense, fights out of a good camp, tons of power in his hands, great durability. Where I can see him losing this fight is if he can't find Ian Garry. Garry moves very well laterally, is not afraid to be patient to win these fights. If Geoff Neal starts falling behind on the footwork, doesn't cut off the cage properly, lets Ian Garry keep escaping out the back door, it's gonna be a long night. Plus, Garry gives you a lot to think about. He throws kicks to all levels with those long legs, and he'll extend combinations, which might give Geoff Neal a lot of problems, but what Geoff Neal has is the sledgehammer. He's got the great equalizer, and he can connect at any moment and win this fight. So it kind of makes you wonder, has Ian Garry dealt with power like this before? I'd say the answer is no. You could point to Song Kenan. Song Kenan has serious power, and he clipped him, but if you look at the decisions that Song Kenan made after he clipped him, that's what allowed Ian Garry to get back into it. It's strange when you see something like that, a guy get knocked down cleanly and then the other guy just not follow up the right way. That's not something you see at the highest level almost ever. You might not see guys get them out of there, but the follow-up is going to be hellacious. Like, they're going to come at you with everything. They're not just going to jump on you and grab you. That's crazy. And if you watch that sequence, you know that a guy in the top 10 in this division would not have let him off the hook. It would have been a wrap. So to me, there's value on the underdog here. I think the line is a little wide. Ian Garry's a lot younger. He's 7 years younger, but Geoff Neal's only 33. And you have to think, Ian Garry's not going to be able to take him down. He probably doesn't knock him out. So is footwork alone enough for him to get the win? Maybe it is, but I like my chances with the dog here, especially because Ian Garry tends to play that tall guy defense because he gets away with it. But despite being so much taller, he's actually at a slight reach disadvantage. So I think that Neal's going to be able to find the mark, and if he does, it's over. So give me Hands of Steel to win this fight. Give me Geoff Neal to win by knockout. And if you haven't already, consider liking the video, leave a comment, something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. You guys help me get this up to 5,000 subscribers. Clap it up for yourselves, especially if you've been here for a while. Next, we're looking at a fight with Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. This fight is insane. Merab the Machine fights at the highest pace we have ever and will ever see in the UFC. Henry Cejudo is the most accomplished combat sports athlete of all time. And now we know why Merab is such a handful. He shoots takedowns non-stop. He attempted 49 takedowns against Piotr 3 on in a 5-round fight, and the scary part about that was more than half of them came in rounds 3, 4, and 5. His cardio is sickening, and outside of his first 2 UFC fights, nobody's been able to keep up. He's tied 4th all-time in takedowns in UFC history and is only 16 away from tying GSP for number 1. Now on the other side, Henry Cejudo, Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, won 2 belts in 2 different weight classes and just challenged for the title only 9 months ago. In that fight, he lost the split decision. The judges thought that Sterling did just a little bit more, although I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent because this is a whole other discussion. If you look at the judges' scorecards, Henry Cejudo won rounds 2, 3, and 4 on more judges' scorecards than Aljamain Sterling did. Currently, fights are judged scorecard by scorecard, but we'd have way more continuity and clarity in these decisions if fights were judged by the rounds. Not the way that they are now, but if rounds were awarded to the fighter who won those rounds on the majority of judges' scorecards. This happens way too often, and conversations like that are for if we ever decide to launch the Kunith MMA podcast, but that's another topic for another day. The point of me saying that, though, is to point out how close the fight between Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo really was. And in hindsight, should we really have expected the best version of Cejudo after a 3-year layoff? It doesn't seem like it. He gave up crucial takedowns, he struggled with Aljamain's length when the fight was at range, and it looked like it took him a minute to get out of first gear, as a result lost the first round. To me, I think that Henry Cejudo only took this fight because he thinks he can win it and get right back to title contention. The game plan to beat Merab is very clear. It's a lot easier said than done, but it's very clear. Try your best to stuff takedowns, throw hard straight punches, knees, uppercuts, anything that's down the middle that can kind of deter takedown attempts. I think jumping guillotine is smart, and if you've watched this channel for a while, you know I hate watching dudes jump guillotine because it's so low percentage, but against Merab, despite getting all these takedowns, his control is horrible. That's why he's able to get 12, 15 takedowns in a fight, because he can't keep anybody down there. So you're a strong wrestler like Henry Cejudo, if you get taken down, which he's going to get taken down at some point, just get right back up. Hit him with the Derek Lewis, just stand up. On top of that, Merab has no submission game to speak of. How do you have 74 secured takedowns and 3 submission attempts? That is beyond me. So I do think that Henry Cejudo can look for guillotines if he has to, but I expect to see a totally better version of Triple C this time around. I believe he's more skilled than Merab overall. I think if this were a 5-round fight, I would lean Merab, but since it's 3 rounds, I don't think that Henry needs to be mindful of his gas tank at all. He can just go. Keep a low stance, keep busy hands, don't get held against the cage, and he's going to win these rounds. I think that Henry Cejudo is going to chop away with leg kicks. I think he's going to be at a decided hand speed advantage, and I think overall we're just going to see a much cleaner fight from Henry Cejudo than we saw 9 months ago. Now for Merab, I do like his relationship with Aljo. You know he's picking Aljo's brain on how to get Henry to the ground, things that he does, things that he doesn't do. But again, I think that we saw Henry Cejudo after that long layoff come back with a little bit of ring rust. I think there were some holes in his game that he's probably filled in just a bit. To go from not fighting for 3 years to going a hard 5 rounds with a champion in the division who's defended the belt more than anybody and arguably winning that fight means a lot. So I think that he's just going to come in a much better version of himself, and I think Henry Cejudo wins this fight by decision. Next we have a fight with Fluffy Hernandez and Roman Kopylov. If you're a true MMA fan, you love both of these guys. Some of the most entertaining fighters in the division. They give us a clash of styles as old as time. You have a striker in Roman Kopylov, and a damn good one at that. And Fluffy Hernandez is a wrestler who breaks guys in there. And I've been banging this Roman Kopylov drum for a while now because he's such a savage. You don't see anybody else at middleweight picking up 4 straight knockout wins in 12 months. And what I like most about him is that these knockouts are not coming in round 1. 11 of his 12 wins as a pro have come by way of knockout, with only 1 of them coming in the first round. Why is that impressive? Why does that stand out? Because it shows that he's not reliant on power. We saw in the main event last week with Joe Pyfer what it looks like when a guy relies so heavily on his power. The chances of him winning in round 1 are really, really high, and they start to fade, and they fade fast as the fight goes on. Roman Kopylov's game is predicated on placement and shot selection. His accuracy is second to none, and he makes great choices with his strikes. And just to give you an idea, if you look at his last 4 fights, all 4 of these are knockouts. These are his 4 UFC wins. Just look at the diversity of these. He face plants Alessio Di Chirico because he lands like a 4-5 punch combination. All to the head, great accuracy gets him out of there. He folds up Punahele Soriano with a kick to the body. He follows that up with a knockout over Claudio Ribeiro with a picture-perfect head kick. And in his most recent fight, he battered Josh Fremd and finishes him with a hard left hook to the liver. 4 wins, 4 knockouts, 4 different ways. He mixes it up crazy. On the other side, Fluffy Hernandez puts a pace on these guys, and they're middleweights. They're big dudes. So you see, once he gets them going, they just start to crumble under his pressure. He's averaging nearly 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. He seems like such a pain in the ass to fight. I say that because he not only gets these takedowns, but he's looking for submissions all the time. time. He's got a great arm in guillotine, and he has a way of rocking guys back and forth while he's looking for it. I think that's what kills people. I can't think of anybody else who's doing it like that right now. It's got to be awful. When you're on the floor, you're on all fours, right? That's when you should feel the most stable. Like, think of it this way. If there's a long bridge and the bridge started getting wobbly, you might drop to your hands and knees. Why? Because you feel more stable. But when you're in that position against Anthony Hernandez, he's still messing with your balance. Like, he's pulling you forward, pulling you back, side to side. And I think that's what makes guys so tired when they fight him. They're working all those tiny little stabilizing muscles. I think that's what screws them up. Them getting punched and choked at the same time is probably part of that too. So I mean, this is a banger, right? Both of these guys have styles that you gotta respect, and picking between them feels like I'm picking between my two kids. That is, if they're in the room, because if they're not in the room, you can actually say who you like more. But if they are in the room, you have to say, I love you both the same. But the whole point of you watching the video is for me to tell you which one I like. That's why you're here. So I'm gonna tell you, I lean Roman Kopylov. I think on the feet, he offers up way too many problems, especially when he goes to the body. And we've actually seen Anthony Hernandez finished by a body shot against Kevin Holland years ago. He's a former fat guy, so he's still a little soft in the belly. On top of that, Roman Kopylov's got a 92% takedown defense, plus he trains in the mountains of Dagestan. So I see him being able to keep the feet better than most of Fluffy's opponents. He throws absolute ched to the body, and I think that he gets him out of there in the second round. So the KO streak lives on. Give me Roman Kopylov to win this fight by knockout. And to give you a sneak peek at plus money, Roman Kopylov will be on the official betting article this week. The official betting article finished just positive last week. We would have crushed if the Daniel Marcos fight didn't get canceled, but strong week overall. And we're going to continue that this week because there are spots that I love. So if you want the official betting article, as well as the DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, access to the community forum, things like that will continue to build and grow as the weeks and months and years go on. If you just play DFS and you just want a lineup optimizer so you can start keeping up with the rest of the field, that's $5.99 on the website. Very easy to use, very customizable, and it's going to help you build better lineups. Next, we have a fight with Amanda Lemos and Mackenzie Dern. The UFC is calling this their featured prelim bout of the night. I'm calling this Dinosaur Barbecue, because Mackenzie Dern is getting absolutely cooked here. Amanda Lemos has potentially the heaviest hands in all of women's MMA pound for pound today. Mackenzie Dern struggled mightily last time out against Jessica Andrade, where she was stunned by every strike. Andrade knocked her down 4 times in under 2 rounds. Dern's striking looked terrible. Her striking defense looked even worse. Before that, against Angela Hill, she looked career best, dominated her over 5 rounds. So we expected much more last time out, but it didn't come to fruition. Before that, she lost the decision against Yan Xiaonan and was gifted before that a decision over the tiny tornado Tisha Torres in a fight that she so clearly lost. It was an egregious scorecard reading. And Marina Rodriguez put it on her over 5 rounds as well. So realistically, Mackenzie Dern has had 1 good performance in her last 5 fights. It's very concerning. And now she fights Amanda Lemos, who just challenged for the title, has good jiu-jitsu of her own, very good submissions, and she'll win every second of this fight that's standing and at range. Her knockdown rate is Josh Emmett-like. It is absurd. Her finish rate in the UFC is over 80%. And her striking accuracy on paper sits at 55%, while Mackenzie Dern only sits at 40%. She's also going to be fighting out of southpaw, which Dern has hardly seen in her professional fighting career. So that long, hard, straight left is going to be there for Amanda Lemos all night for however long this fight lasts. So give me the power, give me the fighter who's gone further in a shorter amount of time in her career, give me the better striker, give me Amanda Lemos to win this fight by knockout. This next one could get ugly. I'm telling you that now. And from a betting perspective, the angle is very obvious. I'm going to give you the formula right now. You have essentially the same guy on both sides. You have Pazao de Lima and Justin Tafa. They both throw very hard punches. They both throw very hard kicks. They both scare Golden Corral staff when they walk through the door because they're ready to get after it. And these big boys are going to throw down, but again, it might get ugly. And not ugly in that one is going to beat the piss out of the other, but ugly in that after about 5 minutes, these guys are probably just going to start going through the motions. I would not be surprised if this fight goes the distance, and I think the unders are going to be what people flock to. This fight probably sees the judges' scorecards. There's toughness on both sides here, and there's also going to be a point where there's probably an agreement between these two. It's going to be like 8.5 minutes into the fight, and one of them's just going to look at the other like, hey dude, are you tired? I'm so fucking tired, man. How about we go to the clinch? Meet me on the fence. Meet me on the fence. Now I'm kidding, of course, but I do think that the pace of this fight is going to slow down quite a bit as the fight goes on. So to me, it's going to come down to who can get out to a lead early and maintain it, since since they both have similar skill sets, I think the easiest thing for us to do is just take the younger man here. Marcos Rogério de Lima is 38 years old, nearly 39 years old. Justin Tafa just hit 30. So I'd expect him to be a bit faster, and he's going to be a bit fresher late. I also think Pizzao's going to play it safe a little bit because of how his last fight went down. Derek Lewis quite literally kneed his teeth in. That's not even a joke. That was serious damage that he took, and at 38 years old, he probably feels like, I'm way too old for this, man. But it's his job. It's how he earns a living. He's going to go out there, he's going to compete, he's going to do it as much as he can for as long as he can. I get it, I respect it, I understand it. I just worry about his mental side of the game after sustaining such an injury. Meanwhile, Justin Tafa just turned 30, coming off of 3 highlight reel knockouts, got a performance bonus last time out down in Australia in front of the boys. So he's probably feeling pretty good about himself right now. So give me Justin Tafa to win this fight by decision. This next one here, hold on, Oscar, was that the best picture we could find of this guy? Are you trying to piss me off? Well, we have Rinya Nakamura fighting Carlos Vera this week. Carlos Vera making his UFC debut. He was supposed to fight Daniel Marcos in his debut. I think something happened, but now he fights Rinya Nakamura. Nakamura is a minus 2 million favorite, something like that. There's not a whole lot we need to get into here. Rinya Nakamura's got that Olympic wrestling experience. He's got dynamite in both of his hands. He's 8 years younger, and he's going to win a lot of fights in the UFC. The guy's a problem. He's going to win this fight however he wants this week. It's going to be a finish. I think that he gets Carlos Vera out of there in the first, maybe second round. There's just a complete difference in speed, strength, athleticism. This is like the UFC saying, we need somebody to fight Rinya Nakamura. Just call the Carlos Vera guy up. Tell him to get in there. He is absolutely a lamb this week. Rinya Nakamura is going to win this fight inside the distance. Now, this fight, if you were ever to take an under on a round prop, this is the fight where you do it. And real quick, I know I said that about Brendson and Topuria last week. I didn't think that Topuria was going to take 10 minutes in the first round or just kind of chill. Ruin the complete momentum of the fight. Just shameless. Brendson Ribeiro is coming off of a Contender Series win where he was able to get a contract after a first round knockout. He was a big underdog in that fight. That's what these guys have in common. He was getting backed up in that fight, but he landed a short shot that looked like it just froze Bruno Lopez. Follows that up with another one, puts him down, and it's all over. The guy clearly has ridiculous power. He's got a 100% finish rate. I went back and watched some of his work. The power checks out. On top of that, he likes to get to the clinch a lot where he's able to get his takedowns, and he has a bit of a submission game to him as well. So the guy's fairly well rounded, and I think he's somebody who can win fights at this level. And the clinch will serve him well this week. I do think that he's going to have the grappling edge because if he gets sucked into a brawl against Mingyang Zhang, he's going to get lit up. Maybe not lit up. It could go either way, but Zhang's got huge power, 100% finish rate. He was also a massive underdog in Road to UFC where he was able to win and land himself a contract. I think the under, again, is the safest spot here. I'll take Zhang to get it done, though. I expect him to be just a bit sharper. I expect him to be a bit faster, and I think he'll be more aggressive. Ribeiro might be okay with moving backwards. We've seen that, but that's also a huge mistake. You can't give a guy like Zhang an inch. If you start letting him walk you down, he's gonna make you pay. Again, this can go either way. Big question marks on both sides with both these guys. It's good, though, that two guys like that are fighting one another because we're gonna be able to learn a lot from both of them, but I do think that Zhang gets it done in one. Again, take the under, but give me Mingyang Zhang to win this fight by knockout. Next, we have a fight with Josh Quinlan and Danny Barlow. Quinlan steps in place of Yusako Kinoshita to fight Danny Barlow, and this matchup got a bit tougher for the UFC debutant. We know by now that Kinoshita's not that great. I think that Josh Quinlan is better than him, but I think the result of this fight will be the same no matter what. Danny Barlow has crazy long arms, length that at this weight class you really can't train for. You see that 80-inch reach there. If you're a welterweight like Josh Quinlan, to train for an 80-inch reach, you have to call in like a heavyweight. And we saw last week what a 78-inch reach on a southpaw looked like from Carlos Paredes. He starched Trevin Giles. He landed a crisp left hand out of that southpaw stance, and that punch was there whenever he wanted. He was able to reach Giles in his orthodox stance from a distance that Giles wouldn't have been able to reach him back. Clean shot on the chin, puts him away. I expect the same exact thing from this fight right here. Barlow's fast, that left hand lands heavy, and he finds the mark on guys right away. He doesn't waste a lot of time, and if you've been following my stuff for a while, you know I am a Josh Quinlan denier. And I absolutely read his soul last time out against Trey Waters. Trey Waters was way too long, way too athletic, and he beat Quinlan every round. Barlow offers a lot of the same issues. He's not as tall, but he's a bit longer, and he hits much harder. I see him dropping Quinlan with a straight left early in this fight. Quinlan has power, and he's going to try to brawl because that's what he does. That's how he wins fights. But I think that's just going to leave a lot of openings. I like my chances here with the cleaner talent. Give me Danny Barlow to win this fight by knockout. I'm going to say round one. Give you the round with it too. Slap you up a little bit. Next, we have a fight with Oban Elia and Val Woodburn. I'm going to tell you straight away. Val Woodburn made his UFC debut against Bo Nickel at middleweight, gets knocked out cold. It was a bad showing. People will look at that loss and say, Val Woodburn, you trash. Val Woodburn, you got no reason to be here. That was his only loss as a pro, and it was against the guy who people think could win the belt in the next year or two at middleweight. Val Woodburn, if you're watching this, they're sleeping on you, pimp. The disrespect from an odds perspective in this fight is crazy. Like, people are like, yeah, Oban Elliott, top of my parlays. Are you kidding me? You ever watched Oban Elliott fight? Did you watch Oban Elliott on Contender Series? Nothing was impressive about that. I did like one thing. I like how the fight wasn't always going his way and he was able to stick with it and win late. So I think he won the first and the third round, if I'm remembering correctly. But he needed takedowns. He didn't look like a fantastic striker by any means. And now he fights Val Woodburn, who's a lot shorter, but is going to have a lot more power. He's going to be able to stuff takedowns, I believe. And he's also fighting out of a better gym. Oban Elliott's fighting out of Shore MMA. The only other UFC fighter coming out of there is Jack Shore himself. If you go and you look at the people who are in that camp, it's not a whole lot of very experienced fighters. It's a lot of amateurs in there as well. You got Val Woodburn who's fighting at a Fusion XL with very high level guys. This fight's at welterweight. He's taking reps with welterweights like Phil Rowe. He's already got his debut out of the way. It's not going to get harder in his career than Bo Nickel. I promise you that. I expect him to feel really good down at 170. I expect him to be strong for the weight class. And I think that he gives Oban Elliott all kinds of problems. I don't think Oban Elliott's going to put enough on him for him to get respect. Elliott's going to need to get takedowns in this fight to win, and I don't think he's going to be able to. I think Fusion XL comes in with a good game plan for Woodburn, and he's able to get it done. And I would not be shocked if it was inside the distance. So the pick for me is going to be Val Woodburn to win this fight by knockout. And the last fight that we're going to be looking at is Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick. This fight is very clearly two fighters at different points in their career. Andrea Lee is 9 years older. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. She went from being 5-3 in the UFC to 5-6 in the UFC. Miranda Maverick's 26 and still learning on the job. She's fought really decent competition in the UFC, like Jillian Robertson, you've got Macy Barber, you've got Jasmine Jasdavicius. So very good experience overall. She's fighting out of a good camp, and I think they're just going to come in with a good game plan where she's going to get after it early. And I think the fighter who does that, the fighter who goes first, is going to be the one that wins this fight, because both these women have issues with takedown defense. They're both decent offensive wrestlers in their own right, but they have trouble getting taken down. And you see too in women's MMA in these divisions, you see often that the stronger fighter physically is the one that's going to have the advantage. When you start to get like to specialists like Mackenzie Dern is when physical strength doesn't matter as much in the clinch. But for fighters at this level that aren't exactly grappling specialists, I think physical strength matters quite a bit. And I think that Miranda Maverick is a lot stronger than Andrea Lee, and that's really going to show in the clinch. I think she's going to be first. I think she's going to take her down. And I think she's going to ride out position. Andrea Lee is tough. She's got decent cardio. And I think that if they are on the feet, she's going to get the better of most of the striking exchanges. Miranda Maverick is a middling striker in this division at best. Like side by side, I think that Andrea Lee has a more complete package. I think she is a better fighter technically, but I think the one who's going to win this fight is going to be Miranda Maverick because of her presence, her strength, and because she's going to get to the clinch first. With Andrea Lee, I think there would be more of a feeling out process where she's going to try to be more patient. She knows that she really needs a win here. You don't want to go 4 consecutive losses in the UFC. I think Miranda Maverick just goes at her right away. Give me Miranda Maverick to win this fight by decision. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I'll see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.